Thanks for tuning in every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. And tonight, the Legends continue. And up next tonight is Legends number 8 episode tonight. And I talked to Coach Bill Fleet, who's going to join me in just a moment. I want to make sure I thank the Rome Sports Hall of Fame. And tonight, I also want to give a shout out to Joe Griffo. And I also want to give a shout out to the Ryan brothers, Marty, Joey, Kevin, and Brendan for helping sponsor tonight's show. The Rome Sports Hall of Fame, you can tune in. You can check out their Facebook page at the Rome Sports Hall of Fame and Museum. They're located at 5790 Rome New London Road in Rome. You can reach them at 315-339-9038. And you can email Dave Sparaglia at sbaradav@aol.com. I have all the Rome Sports Hall of Fame information, the GoFundMe, the Venmo information coming across the bottom on the ticker. So if you have any questions, you can follow it on there. If you're tuning in on YouTube or Facebook tonight, if you have any questions for Coach or myself, you want to put some comments in there, it's an interactive show, so place them in there, and I will pull over as many as I can. And I want to make sure I also give a shout out to the month of May on the Rock Pile. I'm not sure if it's going to be Wednesday nights. I will have the WKTV personalities will join me on the Rock Pile, so I'm excited to talk with each one of them. But without further ado, let's see if we can bring Coach on to the broadcast now in just a moment. How we doing, Coach?
How you doing, Rock?
Doing fantastic. How we doing tonight?
I'm doing excellent. I've got my IT man here with me. And you know how guys my age and your dad, Coach Evans, how tech savvy we are.
Coach, I got to tell you, the only guest I think who did this, and I said this to Coach 80, I said it to Coach Kenny, the only guest that I've had so far to get on here by themselves has been Coach Linda Harjung. Coach didn't have anybody helping her, but I'm glad we were able to get you on.
Well, I'm glad to be here, and I appreciate you doing, Rocky.
No problem. So, Coach, let's get right into it. I did not know growing up you were a baseball guy. When I think of Coach Bill Fleet, I think hockey, and more hockey. Talk to me about the baseball days.
All right, Rock. You know, maybe the easiest way, let me start where it all started. We grew up on Jefferson Street, which is right behind Colonel's Park, which turned into the Armory. And when the Colonel's Park, when the Rome Colonels and when the Can-Am League folded, they took the grandstand down, and Colonel's Park became our neighborhood field. It's pretty cool when you're 8 years old and you have your own baseball field.
Sure.
And we played countless ball games there. I mean, it was every day in the summer when the first one up would ride the bicycles and start going around knocking on the doors. And the rules were, I got a kick out of Coach Davis because that was our rules. The first 18 guys play, and they get to play 3 innings, then you can substitute. But we would play there most of the day. As we got a little older, we started going to Franklin's Field too. And at Franklin's Field, we could do tons of things. I mean, we were playing basketball, football, tennis, and then in the winter they froze the tennis courts, and they had for public skating, and they had a big hockey box with lights, and some years they had 2 small hockey boxes. So it wasn't uncommon for us to spend the day there. And I think where I really started getting the interest, my father really loved baseball, and I think that's where my interest from baseball came. And he was happy just to have my brother and I do what we wanted to do. And we kind of, in the winter, we liked basketball too. We didn't know what we wanted to do, but hockey, then as we got a little older, hockey became our choice. And I think where it started for me, we had some maybe early success with, and I was very fortunate to have some real good coaches at that age. And I think people don't always get in Little League. And I made the American Little League at Penny Field, and my coach was Vic Trino. And then I was very fortunate to be the catcher on the All-Star team. And that team was coached by Ray Vaccaro and Coach Trino. And we ended up, which a lot of people don't know, we went the farthest of any team in Rome, and we were 1 game from Williamsport when we got eliminated. And you played quite a few games, and you went all over. And that was a great time and a great experience. And I think that really just fostered my love, for the sports. And I learned a lot from both of those gentlemen on hard work and what you had to do to be a ball player. From the hockey, we played tons of hockey in the hockey box, and they had rec leagues and everything else. And Coach Dane was the high school coach, and he was trying to get the program organized a little more. So they started taking us over to Clinton to see how we could do it. And I know the first time he took a few of us over, it wasn't very good. But the next year they put us in the Clinton League, and we did very well. They took us to the state tournament, and we won a game and lost a game as eighth graders. But it really opened our eyes to something that could be a lot of fun. The next year, they started taking us around to Lake Placid and different places, and we turned out for just a year or two of real coaching that we did have some guys that could play. I had a coach, Billy June, that really liked the kids, and he would bring other guys in to help him. And that team, we played in Clinton in the state championship, and we got to the finals, and we tied Canton 0-0 after 2 overtimes. And because they had the Comets playing after, they called us co-champs and sent us up to Lake Placid in the Nationals. Well, in the first round, we won our first round game. And then that night, we took our first loss of the year. We went 3 overtimes with Brookline, Massachusetts, before they beat us in overtime. Brookline ended up being the national champions. I think for there, those 2 things fostered a liking of sports for me. And that led me to play hockey in high school. I was a captain my senior year. And maybe my wife, maybe that's why I'm like this a little bit, that it was the last goalie at RFA not to wear a face mask. And I took a couple raps in those days, but not a lot.
And Coach, what I wanted to ask you, I don't mean to jump in, but I wanted to ask you, go back to, and I've asked this question with all the coaches and I get similar answers, but, you talked about, the hockey in the box. You talked about, growing up playing basketball or people playing baseball outside, you're playing pickup games. Do you think nowadays we're missing that? You don't see the kids outside throwing the ball around, shooting baskets anymore. We're missing that now, aren't we?
Oh, we definitely are. And I could see it in my years of the recreation department. And the last years, you just didn't have as many kids on the park playing the sports or just going there in the morning and hanging out all the time. And I think some of it, I look back, I could see it in my career. I think after the tragedy with Sarah Wood, that parents, got a little more afraid, and they had to be a little bit more cautious for their kids. And that, I think, might have stopped some of it. But I could see it in the rec department where they kind of just, stopped going. And that's something that that we've really missed. And I'll go on as I got a little older, which I think I was very fortunate. As I got older, Mr. Keating, the recreation director, kind of took a liking to myself and some of my friends. So he's kind of started hiring us in some of the sports to referee and do some things. And from that, I was 16 years old and I was refereeing in the 6-man tackle football league, which you would have loved. You go over there, sign out a pair of pads, sign out a helmet. Your team could be the Colts and you're playing against your buddies from West Rome or whatever. Or they might have been like Perry's News was a team. And we just had a ball. And I looked, so my college supervisor left and Mr. Keating called me up and he says, I got something for you. He says, I want you to take the league over, for the rest of the year. And I thought, geez, that's pretty cool. And when we got into the league, one of the teams was the Turn Road something, and it was coached by Colonel Moore. The other teams didn't have coaches, and Colonel Moore was really a good coach, and he had like 2 teams, and the other teams couldn't go with him. So I asked Mr. Keating if I could work with one of the teams on my own time. He said, yeah, you can, but he said you can't referee that team's games or when they play Turn Road, and I knew that. And so we refereed with him, and it got a little better. And then in the end of the year, I asked Mr. Keating, I got to know Colonel Moore, and I asked Mr. Keating if we could take a couple players and combine and kind of make an all-star team and play Turn Road, the best of 3. And Colonel Moore really, really, really loved it. And we ended up having a great series, and that went the best of three. And I'm looking for there. All of a sudden, I'm going into my senior year, and I'm thinking, what do I want to do? And I started the natural. My father found there was a recreation education course at Cortland. I started thinking, I could see myself doing the job that Mr. Keating used to do, and I thought I'd like to do some coaching. So at a young age, I had kind of had some ideas of what I wanted to do, and it was the good part that Colonel Moore's team years later, I found his son was one of their best players, and his name was Jerry Moore. I read 6 years later, he's playing on the University of Arkansas on a scholarship, and he gets drafted by the Chicago Bears. And that was my first time seeing that, and I thought that was pretty neat. Some of the guys that I played with are 6 years younger. They had in that team. We had Jimmy Burns, Jimmy Kenny, and Jimmy Smallman was some of the ones I remembered. I don't know if they remember some of those times, but I thought that was pretty cool for me at a young age to get an idea of what I wanted to do.
And Coach, if you can, so take us through. I want to start. I mean, I want to kind of. We'll get into the hockey piece because that's the piece I want to put a lot of focus on. But I also want to start with the baseball piece because I didn't know until I did a little bit of research. I didn't know you spent so many years coaching baseball. Talk to us about baseball.
Okay, I coached about 8 years of junior high baseball. And we very fortunate. Rome, when you had the 3 little leagues, then you had the 4th league up in the Lake Delta League, had some really good ball players. And Rome Catholic was fortunate. We were getting some really good ball players. And I had kind of a nice little system. We didn't have a JV team, so I had these kids. Some of them I'd have for 3 years. So we very seldom lost a game. And we had a couple, unbeaten years. And then it came along. I had probably one of the favorite teams, and these guys are still just fantastic individuals today. And I had 5 of them in 7th grade. I had a bunch more in 8th, and then I picked up a couple more by 9th. We had an assembly of them, and I was thinking, boy, it'd be nice maybe one of these years to get a chance to coach varsity, but I never really thought about it. And then Coach Didio called me in, and he said, Coach Gomez is going back to Springfield for his master's. He said, I want you to consider coaching the varsity team. And that was something that, I'm thinking, geez, boy, I would love to work with those guys in varsity baseball. That would kind of be my dream job next to hockey. And I went down to Mr. Eilenberg. I asked him if, what he thought, if he would consent to let me do it. And he said, can you do both jobs? I said, sure. Then he walked out and he patted me on the back. He says, you're not here much anyway. Go get him. That was Carl. But so from there, I had the opportunity to coach my dream team, and those guys they're just fantastic. The hockey team was going great guns, and we'd won the sectional, and we're playing in the regional game against Salmon River, and practice for baseball was supposed to start. And the seniors came over, and we needed the mounds repaired. We needed equipment, and with Coach Didio, and I think Coach Farini was our freshman coach. They pulled all the equipment out and got it going, ready. And I want to say with that team, for the 2 years that those kids had left me, Marty Gomez was just a great guy, and when he worked for me with the recreation department, I got Coach Didio to hire him as a gym teacher at the junior high, and he was a good baseball man. And between the two of us, we spent a lot of time with those kids. So the 2 years that they weren't with me, Marty just brought them along another step. And my next move that year, I knew I wanted another coach. And I thought of the guy that I watched grow up, and he's around Franklinsfield. And then I knew him a lot better, and I always thought the world of him, was Wayne Cacciatore. And Wayne proved to he fit like a glove with those kids and I. And that was just a team that we had a ball with. And I remember meeting with the players, and they were doing very well. They could win. They were winning the league, but they weren't getting the sectional. Like, I remember our first meeting, and I just basically told them, they agreed with me. Our goal was to win the league, but our other goal, I said to them, if this isn't going to be a satisfying season to me if we don't win the league and if we don't win the sectionals. And that was kind of the pledge we took. They just bought in. And that's why I liked it, because when they're freshmen, if you sent kids down and they're pitching, working on skills on their own, whether the coach was there or not, some kids play in baseball as their second, third sport. These guys are like Wayne and I and Marty. They just love baseball, and every day you'd enjoy them. And one of the kids I want to talk about was and I don't want to talk names because I'm going to miss somebody, was Rich Disa. Rich was our star pitcher that year, and Rich ended up, when I'm talking about Rich sadly passed away in September, and we didn't find out about it for a while, but all of us, have got together. We've been in contact with Rich's wife, and we had so many great memories of Rich. My last conversation with him, I stayed in touch with him on Facebook and that, but his son was in the Little League World Series, and that was cool. I'm watching a game on TV once we found out his son was playing, and our other ball player who's good friends with him, Chuck Monroe, had told me about it. And he's out in center field, and we're talking back and forth during the game. But Rich was just a great guy, great family guy, and his kids are super. And his daughter now is a scholarship volleyball player for the University of California at Berkeley. And that team was just amazing. We went through our league. We just had a ball playing baseball. We won the sectionals, and I didn't realize. And I remember Mr. Didio told me, he said, you'll get a sectional packet they'll tell us all about it. So we win the sectionals, and we're happy as anything. And we find out the game might be tomorrow or Saturday, and they've got their prom on Saturday. So I go to Coach, can't we get this at least Saturday for him? The prom was Friday night. He says, no, you're playing tomorrow. But our season went on. Back then you played A and B, and then you played C, D, and the winner of A, B had to play C, D. We had to play 8 games to make it to the state finals. Wow. So we're going for the state, and we had the pitching, and we had some kids, and we really got hot at the end of the year with the sticks, and things were going good. We had all the confidence in the world. One of our games during the year, we wanted to beat Notre Dame. Was every year was going into the AB championship and going to the Final Four. We had them on the schedule, and we put everything we had to beat Notre Dame. And Notre Dame had Mark Lemke and Byron Abraham, and we beat them in extra innings, and that just gave us a lot more confidence.
Coach, you know what I'm chuckling at, because Coach Vaccaro here, let me pull up some comments. We got some feedback. Okay. But he says, Coach played on one of, if not the best Little League All-Star team to ever come out of Rome. And I'm laughing because when I was younger, we always got beat. When I played, I was in Rome Federal. We had Federal League, American League, and the National League. And every year we would go far, but we always lost to Oswego. And I still, to this day, love watching the Little League World Series. And my dad always says he played on a team, too, that was 1 or 2 games away from going to Williamsport. And I think when I look back on my career now, I've played in a state championship. I've won sectional titles. I still wish that, making it to Williamsport, the Little League days were still the best days, because back then we had three leagues.
It was fantastic, and I'll tell you, Coach, I learned so much from Coach Vaccaro, and he's one of my. I learned a lot that I took through life with him, and he came back, which made me feel good when he was coaching at Rome Catholic. He was getting my hockey players to play freshman football, and I'll tell you, he'd tell me, he says, no. You've got some good kids coming. He says, I've ran them, and they've did a lot of work, but you're not going to have to say much to them. He says, I've told them how you're going to coach and that. And then when Ray retired, he used to come, Coach, Billy, I'm just bored. He said, what do you got? So he came with me. He came with me for all our hockey games on the road. That was perfect, where you didn't have to pay attention to your kids, where they're sitting on the bus, count them. If we went to a fast food place after that, they're back on the bus at the same time. And I took him to Glens Falls with me, and I didn't have to worry about. He had the rooms and everything all super, and he was one of my best friends. And one of the last things I did when Ray got sick, Rich Disa had sent me. His son won the United States Championship, and they lost the next day to Japan in the World Championship. And when they went back, they had a big parade, and the stuff that they sent those Little League players was fantastic. So Rich sent me everything that I still got it. And one of my last, I'd go down and see Ray, and we would go through all of Rich's stuff. And one, he said, geez, can you leave that? I said, sure, Ray. And then we came back and he went through everything and just reminisced, our days from gone back.
Coach, every team, it seems like, when you win sectional championship, you get into the state playoffs, they're special teams. They're special teams for a reason. That baseball team that you had, what made them so special?
I think start of it, they were just very good and very schooled, and they were unselfish baseball players. I mean, we played a lot of small ball, and I would give the cleanup hitter the suicide, and the kid wouldn't give you a funny look. He'd just put the ball down, or he'd push, and times if we had to push the runner over, and that's what made those kids. They just wanted to win, and they just wanted to succeed, and they really didn't care who got the credit as long as we won. I remember I'll give you one story on him. In our 7th game, we played this Norwood Norfolk, and they were the best team in the North Country, and they used to win either division. And we had a great game with them. And now we're excited. We're going to the Final Four, and it's just everything was unbelievable. So I get back and we start all our scouting, and Tommy Berry calls me. He says, "Hey, Coach, I just got to get this kid you're going to play." From Rotterdam, Draper of Rotterdam, they got a kid throwing the ball 95 miles an hour, and he's striking out everybody. And nobody threw the ball like that high school kid. I don't think he threw it 95, but he was in the high 80s or the low 90s, which is quicker than we ever saw. So we went back and we took our batting practice for the next days, and we took 2 rounds, and we moved the mound up, and we're pitching like from pony distance. I had Wayne throwing, and I had a couple of the other kids could really throw, and we were just throwing heat. And one of the guys said, "Coach, I'm gonna hit one tomorrow." He said, "I know I'm gonna hit a homer." His name was Rich's buddy, and I'll mention his name, and it's Chuck Monroe. Well, we got there, and this kid is throwing heat, and in the first inning, Chuck Monroe was right. He was going to hit one. He hit a 3-run dinger. I can still see the ball going over the fence at Herkimer Field. And then what made it, he tells me afterward, "Coach, I never hit a home run before. I never hit one over the fence, even in the Little League." So that was a special, but they were just a special bunch and a special
And Coach,
team.
you got some more comments over here. Let me just pull a few more up here.
Okay.
Freddie Pachica, Freddie says, "Coach Fleet wasn't a hockey player, but would have loved to play for him. Just a great coach and a great man." Thanks, Freddie. He also says, and we'll get into some of the RCH hockey here, but he says the 84-85 Rome Catholic hockey could have competed with anyone.
That was a great team. We've got, I've heard you ask Jimmy Kenny the question about which one was one of your best. Well, I'll leave it. There's 4 sectional winners. I'll say that there's 3 of them, and those guys can argue which one is the best. I think they can narrow. I'm not sure how they'll narrow it down, but that would have been some good ones. And I look on here, Jerry Burleson. Jerry was, I played with Jerry. We played Little League together, and we were on that all-star team, and I played hockey together. I had something with that team, a ton of shutouts, but I had Jerry Burleson and a kid, Carl Acanero, on defense. Nobody could get around Jerry or Carl. And I think basically if I stopped the long shots, I was going to be pretty successful. And Jerry was just an amazing athlete. I remember the first year I made Little League, he was hitting home runs, and my friend Bobby Strope, I said, Bobby, I said, Jerry, you see the new bat? He's killing the ball. And I asked Jerry, got the nerve to ask Jerry if I could take a swing with the bat. And he said, sure. I went up and I grounded out. Bobby says, I told you it's not the bat, it's Jerry. But Jerry was in there. Jerry was an All-American football player also. He was just, it's a good discussion. Who's the best athlete in Rome? And we'll never solve it, boy. But Jerry and Joe Mortis and Mike Davis, and I think from the old time that Bill Keating, who was the recreation guy, was a great athlete and a great coach.
All right, let's bring up a few more here. We got a bunch. Stephen Smith says, one of the best coaches I ever played for at RCH. Even cut me, but still loved playing for him.
And this, sometimes you have to cut before you get outside. And Lenny Skibitsky and I were coaching, and we had a tough cut. And that year, Mr. Didio, they got us new uniforms. He had 20 new uniforms. He says, you're not going to keep extra kids and go upstairs and bring a pair of JV jerseys down and a pair of varsities. You're going with 20. And I said, okay, coach, I've got the new one. He said, before we got him, I said, no, that's fine. So we made our cut, and we go to Franklin's Field with their first real outside practice out of a parking lot. And I was worried about a couple kids, and I wasn't sure. When I get there, Lenny tells me, he says, you were right. We made a mistake. And the mistake was Steve. But what I did, I offered some of those kids that they could come back and be practice players and have them ready for next year. And I was just praying that Steve would come, because I could see that Steve was a ball player. And as much as I knew, he played fantastic for us as a ninth grader, and he went up with Marty as a 10th grader and started on varsity. So, and he's just a great guy. And he's been in sports. He's been a college coach and an administrator ever since he left Rome.
And Coach, you got Carla Cacciatore, but it's Wayne. It says, this is Wayne. He just joined in from the golf course. He says, my arm is still sore from throwing that day.
Yeah. We had to really bring the heat up. Wayne was throwing hard, but he was 15 feet closer.
You got Dan McCarthy says, good to see you, Coach. Hope everything's going well.
Danny was one of the players that I got to coach in my last few years at Rome Free Academy. And Danny, I remember Danny was a great player, and he worked like anything and never complained, and he waited his time to start, and he just a nice role player.
And Scott Petoniak, who Scott's going to be a guest on the Rock Pile here within the next couple months, and Scott's going to join me Saturday on the radio to talk some SU. But he says, another fantastic guest, Rock. Few people have done as much for Rome sports on so many levels as Fleeter. Great coach, great rec department director, great ambassador, and a great friend. That's very true, Scott.
Scott's a great guy, and Scott's been all over the world covering the Olympics and all the sports that he has covered. I had one probably could have been an embarrassing moment in my sports career. Thank God Scott was on that night, and he worked it out real well for me, and I owe him.
So, Coach, I got to get into the hockey, because when I think of hockey in this area, you're the only name that comes up in New York State, and there's a lot of hockey guys, but you got to start with the dynasty at Rome Catholic. Talk to me about some of those years.
Okay. You want to get into the beginning, or you want to go right with the dynasty?
Take me through the start. Yeah.
Let me take you through it quick, and I better cut some of this down, because I don't want to keep you. We got time. I've got a tendency. My banquets when we won were very, very long. The first team was a 71-72 team, and Frank Didio had named me the coach, and Richard McMahon offered to be the assistant. Dick was on a search committee to help us find a coach. And actually, I found the coach for him, and it was one of my neighborhood friends who was my sister's age, and I hung with him, was Gary Halder. And Gary had come back from Merrimack after 4 years at Merrimack, and I think he was going to work with his dad in the mill in a management position. And I told Frank, and we were all excited. I was a little leery for taking the job at that time. I would have liked to have had a little bit more experience, and it was going to be hard with the ice, managing a new team coming in. I thought maybe it'd be best just to sit back, and I knew Gary, and Gary was all excited. And Gary told Frank about it, and he says, "Can you have him come up and see me?" And he says, "Of course, he's got it." And Gary went up, and Gary was all excited. And Gary and I used to play a lot of pickup hockey together. And Gary comes up, "Billy, what am I supposed to do?" I said, "What do you mean, what are you supposed to do?" He says, "I got a call. I got a job offer from Chicago. My father says I should go." I said, "Gary, you've got only one decision. You have to go." And Frank came over and asked. He said, "Look," he says, Richard will work with you. He's already coaching the midget team. If you'll be the head coach." So that's how I started at Rome Catholic. And I remember our first team. It was we got 12 skaters. It's on a Sunday morning. I get over there, and one of the best one had broke his ankle, so we didn't have him out on the ice. One boy wasn't there. He was a figure skater, and he had a figure skating lesson. I told Frank, told me about it Friday. I said, I don't know if we can have a player that is going to miss practice. And then we got nice. And Frank said, well, hang on. Let's see what you got first. We got over there, and 4 or 5 of the kids were hanging onto the side of the board, so they couldn't skate. The goalie was one of them. And I'm looking at a few of the good ones, but we did have, there was 3 outstanding hockey players that could really play. And there wasn't a couple of shots over this boy's head. And but he, very hard. He couldn't stand up. So I said, well, this isn't going to work. And I don't think he's going to last. And I didn't see him after that, but I knew one of the ones I'd coached a little bit in the house league. And one of them was a real good athlete. And we knew the next year that we had 2 more coming that were fantastic. They're the best in the youth group. One of them was a goalie. And I said, geez, just do it for us for a year. And he said, I don't know. I said, you don't like to lose. I know how you are. I don't like to lose either. So he did it for us. And I said, you'll still be skating. You'll do all the drills and we're not going to lose out. He said, I know, you're right, coach. So we had a pretty good season. We were 5-8. And I thought, geez, this is going off pretty decent. So the next year we pick up those other 2 and we pick up a couple more kids, and we're going fairly decent. And we were 12-4. We played a few varsity teams, and thought, geez, we're in pretty good shape for varsity hockey. Well, when you went into varsity back then, you didn't have Division I or Division II. You had to go right into the with all the big boys. And so we were up with the RFAs, the West Genesees, the Clintons, and the Ithacas. And being the second smallest school in the section, you're quite a challenge. These kids, we didn't have a lot of depth, but these kids had, and they had an inexperienced coach in me. And luckily, I think Richard had played at Dartmouth, but we were both goalies. And, we were learning at the same time, but they could play, and they could play hard. And we ended up those next 2 years, we played close to 500 hockey. And it was fairly decent. I'll give you one, the RFA game, which we're all looking forward to, was something we'd opened up with a team. We won, and we went over to Clinton, and Clinton was a powerhouse back then. I mean, we had the deer were in the headlights, and we got blitzed. So now we're coming back with RFA, and everybody's thinking, well, I feel sorry for these poor guys. Maybe they should have stayed down another year. But I remember they weren't too happy with me. It went because we couldn't test the good players. We couldn't really work on a man down or power play because we didn't have enough. And I went, and the Chiefs were just starting. Like 3 of them a couple of them were good friends, and a couple lived down the street from me. And one of them, his name was Harvey Willett. I said, Harvey, do me a favor. He says, come out with me. I'll get one of my friends, and you get 3 or 4 guys, 5 guys. So we worked on their zone defense. And we worked on just all the little things. And these guys were making these kids work and checking them and pinning them against the boards, but it worked. And we come out of there, and that game, it ended up, we took the lead with 5 minutes left, but we just couldn't hold on. So that really, in many ways, was a great one. And where I look at the story, family-wise, for us, my wife's girlfriend, and my wife was pregnant, and her girlfriend was pregnant, and the deal was that we were going to watch their kids, and they were going to watch ours. Well, in the middle of the night, it's colder than anything. The phone rings, so my wife leaves and goes to the hospital. Norma goes to the hospital, and Pammy Dight's born. And the second time we play RFA, all of a sudden, in the middle of the night or early, my wife says, "I got to go to the hospital." So we're at the hospital, and Norma's watching our kids. And I remember I thought I was going to miss my first hockey game, and my wife came through for us and got there. But I look back, and I always look back at that time. I tell Al Williams was on RFA that time. I said, yeah, I went a couple of years. I said, Al, it's 40 years to the night we played the first time. He said, well, how do you know that? Because it was my daughter's birthday.
And speaking of that, Coach,
but those are some great times.
your daughter says, "Ha! I thought I heard all the stories, Dad. Good stories."
Yeah, I'll give you a good one with her too. We decided with I was gone so much, and we're starting to really like hockey. And my wife did like the hockey. I was telling her, but she wasn't really fond of my softball or the baseball. But so we started taking the kids to the games, and they really. And now they're in the championship the years, and now it's fun. People are going to the games. You had that Tommy Schmidt Zoo Club. These guys would dress up and things, and they would get the crowd going every game. And my wife, they had a great booster club. My wife got involved in the booster club. Nobody likes to sell 50-50 tickets, so they'd send my little ones out selling 50-50 tickets. So it was really good. And we'd go to the RFA games, and we started going on the road games. And they got to know the players. And so she had a teddy bear that she had a little RCH jersey, and the teddy bear was Lucky. And so we get a game. We've won 14 in a row. We're 14-0-1. We're playing Watertown in a non-leaguer at Watertown in blizzard conditions. So there's no way that she's going to the game, and my wife wasn't going to go. We get beat. So these guys they say the next night, where were you and Lucky? They would come over and talk to her and my youngest one and whatever. They spend time, they'll come early. And their rituals to pat Lucky on the back, and Lucky might have a goal or whatever for him. So that was a good story. And then Lucky went to Glens Falls during the state tournament, and one of the leagues we'll get into. We had one of the best games, and there's some great stories with this in the state championship. We fall behind late in the game, and it's emotional. And they are all around Lucky, my two youngest, and their girlfriends, and they're all crying. They've got Lucky and my Norma, Pammy's mother, had St. Jude cards. Everybody's praying for St. Jude, and I'll tell you later the story. And I think it might have maybe it worked, but that's why RCA. It was so much fun. And
Coach, you got a couple more here. You got Kelly Hoke, who's going to be on with me too. I got to move Kelly because actually my wife and I, the kids are going on spring break for vacation, but Kelly's going to join us. She says one of the top coaches I've had the honor to work with, taught me so much about how to talk to kids. Love them.
Kelly's amazing. We got to really know Kelly when Gary and I were working Gary Labarge and I were working the state tournament. And we'd spend all day, with hockey games, and Kelly was there all day long and was the trainer for that. She's just a fantastic person, and she's, brought so much to the kids. Love her, and she's just brought so much to this.
And Larry
community.
says, Coach Fleet was one of the best coaches I ever had. Helped me out so much. Completely honored to have him as a coach. Thank you so much, Coach Fleet, for everything.
I had Larry when Gary and I, took the Proctor team, and Larry was one of the young ones. We had him on the ice as a manager in 8th grade, grooming him, or maybe even 7th, grooming him for, to start playing with varsity. And what is a great time. He coaches my second youngest grandson, and Larry's just a super guy. Played at Iona and played at Utica.
Coach
College.
Kelly says, I asked him if he got his lifeguard stand back.
Yeah, no, it's still in Utica, Kelly. They needed a goal judge stand, so I asked the mayor if we could take the one from the municipal pool down to for the state tournament. And I guess they liked it so well it's still down there, and we had so many, we more or less put it out on loan. But if I don't know if it was Mayor Eilenberg or Mayor Griffo, if they've got it written up, we'll put a
And
call out
Coach,
and get it
speaking
back.
of the mayor, Carl Eilenberg says Coach Fleet's a great talker as well as a terrific guy.
Carl's amazing. I text Carl. We text just about all the time, and I'm amazed at how much he knows about sports. I don't. I love to watch him, but he knows basketball cold, and he gives me the insight on the basketball game. Of course, we got too much time on our hands. We watch First Take. I've become a fan of Stephen A. We talked about Stephen A. today, but Carl's amazing. I shouldn't be giving his age away, but I know he's got a birthday coming up, or I missed it. But Carl's 91, and he was a great mayor, a great man. He did so much for this community, and he did all our banquets. And what I like with Carl, whether I was 1-18 or if I was 18-1, Carl made us walk out of there thinking we had a heck of a year.
Yeah, and Carl's one of the ones I want to reach out to because I'd love to sit down and talk to him. He's been around, and he'd be great to have on this show.
He'd be amazing. I'd love to say I was saying to you before, Carl and Scott Petoniak talking Syracuse would be another.
Yeah, Scott will be on with me here within the next couple of months. And Scott's always been so good to me and my family. Every time I reach out to him to come on the radio, he'll be on this week to talk SU, but he's always been so good to me and the family. Definitely one of my favorites.
Scott, yeah, he is.
So, Coach, how
fantastic.
special was it? 2 state championships.
They were amazing. It was just an amazing time and amazing years. And if you sat back, and I think some of it, and I look back through some of the years, Carl will tell you. I mean, they would make us look good on the radio with maybe it was a 1-18 season and make our kids feel good. And we tried to do it. If you told us back then that, in 5-6 years, you're going to win a sectional and you're going to win a state champion, I wouldn't have believed it.
It's hard to win a sectional title, Coach. And even, my sister for my family's got the bragging rights because she won a state championship on Coach Harjung's team. And she always jokes with me because I got to the state championship and lost, but she's got the plaque outside the stadium that still says home of the 23-0-0 state champions. So she's got bragging rights in my family, but it's hard to do.
Oh, definitely. It's very hard. And it's very hard to win a sectional championship. You almost have to, everything has to go right for you. You have to be peaking the end at the right time of the year. Sometimes you can't have injuries to key kids, and everything just has to happen right. I'll give you one. Maybe we can talk about the one. I don't think even Scott Petoniak could write a better story than the 83-84 state championship. We were coming off our second sectional title. We had lost. We'd lost some really key players. I didn't think we were going to be. We knew we were going to be good, but I didn't think we were going to be as good. I knew we had one hockey player coming from Camden that played through the youth program. We ended up getting a couple more, and things fell into place. We can mention JR. JR just went on a tear the end of the year, and that's what was nice about those kids. They didn't care who scored or who got the credit, just as long as we won. Anyways, we win the league title. We had to go to a playoff and play CBA. And buddy, I wish they'd do league titles again. That was the biggest thing. I mean, for me, my first championship was the 81-82 team. And that propelled us, I think, to be an upset start team to win the sectional. Anyways, we won the game over CBA. We were on a roll. We win the sectionals. We go to Glens Falls, and We won our first round game, and just talking about how being lucky. Gary used to have something. Preparation is when luck meets or preparation is when practice meets when luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So you've got to have, sometimes you've got to have the breaks. The flu bug hit the school the week while we're preparing for the state championship. We've got kids missing practices. We've got our two top goalies are out, and it just all of a couple days before, a couple more get it. We get the Glens Falls, and we're limping. But it seemed like it just hit it right. The kids won the first game, and half of them went back to bed, but they were good by the next day. And if that hit us any other way, we were probably out of there. Anyways, we're playing LaSalle Troy. We're playing real well. Our goalie played real well. We're leading. Their goaltender is Guy Hebert.
Yes, I
You
have.
ever heard of Guy
NHL
Hebert?
goalie.
And he's Hamilton College, the NHL, the Olympic goalie, rated I think as one of the top 100 players in America. He's their goalie. We we let a lead go in the third period, which we never did, and it's late in the period. And now this is my daughter. The tears are flowing. We're in. I think we're almost like we're getting between a rock and a hard place, and maybe we get a break. The kid that scores the winning goal throws his stick in excitement into the stands. They're debating what they're supposed to do, and it gives us enough time to get to the bench to get our composure back. And we end up now. Here we are. There's 27 seconds left, and we've got it in, and we do a nice job of holding the puck in. Uh, we get it with 6 seconds left. JR slides it over to Pat Monaghan. Pat Monaghan catches it just right. The puck might be on edge, and he throws a nice backhand goal over Guy Hebert. You got the best goaltender in New York State. We've tied the game up with 6 seconds left. Now we felt pretty good. Momentum is with us. And 42 seconds later, Pat Monaghan slides the puck over to JR. And what a way to finish your high school career. Your team's leading scorer, and you've broke all the records, and you finish your high school career 42 seconds in overtime to win.
That's awesome.
To win the championship. But it gets better. Patrick Monahan, it's St. Patrick's Day. It's March 17th, 1984. Patrick Monahan is named after St. Patrick. He's turning 16 years old. They've got shamrocks on their helmets, and he gets the tying goal, and sets up the winner. And it takes Scott Petoniak wrote a story on
Hey,
that.
Coach, I want to jump around just for the sake of time because I still got some stuff I want to get to. But you win 2 state championship at Rome Catholic, and then you spent some time 5 years at Proctor, really starting a brand new program. What was it like going from winning, being at the highest level possible, a state championship, to going to a program where you had to start from scratch?
I looked at it I was really thinking about finishing up, and then all of a sudden, when you find yourself out of hockey, batteries got re-energized, and where I ended up, we didn't have enough kids to play at Rome Catholic, and that was the toughest thing I ever had to do was tell. And I felt Sister Nancy was so fantastic to me, the principal, Sister Nancy Gregg. Mike 80 was our AD, and it was going to be a tough sell to tell the kids that we can't have a program anymore. We had tried to do everything to get kids, and there just wasn't enough kids. And so I really got re-energized. And where I ended up at Proctor, I tried to get the kids to combine, or Notre Dame to combine with us, and they turned us down. And Coach Asalta had called me about how they can enter their team. And I said, already, I got some kids that I'm trying to find a place where they can play. And he said, no. He said, hey, we want you to coach. And I said, well, can I can I bring Gary with me? He says, and he says, sure. So we went down and we talked about trying to, bring the players. And finally, it's pretty hard to start a new program, convince the Board of Education you're going to spend money on a new program and saying you need to combine with another school. So it was really a challenge. And the first year to get along, I remember our AD was Bill Veck that I met in the state tournament. He was one of the state high school chairmen. And I told him about the young kids that we'd found through a survey. And I said, there's some players that can really play. Maybe we can get this thing jump started a little early. And Larry Craccioli was one of them. And he said, Bill, yeah, that's fine. We'll call them managers. I think Mike Eady mentioned the thing. So we had, we had 4 or 5 managers coming one night, and then 4 or 5 the others. But these kids, we could see that they could play. I mean, we took our share of lumps. And the kids, the first couple of years they'd come out of a program that they didn't really have much of a good program. So they're a little rough around the edges. I remember them telling us, we're standing outside and you said, yeah, they brought these 3 guys down from Rome to beat us up. I said, what do you mean beat you? I said, you guys, he's coach, you guys skate us into the ground every single practice. I said, you guys don't know what hockey is. I said, we don't do half the stuff that we did at Rome Catholic. You guys, we've got to get used to it. And it's a trick. And I think what really made that program even more fun was the Devils were there. And Paul Diuto was their business director. And Paul said, Bill, he said, we'd like to get some of your kids to the games. We're trying to get more kids. And we look, what an opportunity to jumpstart our program. So Paul would put us in for like a couple bucks a game if we all came as a team. So every Friday night we didn't have a game. We brought the kids to the Devils game. And these guys they started seeing how hard these guys worked and what hockey really, really was. And that got it going. And another thrill, Tommy McVie was just a great coach. A lot of people haven't heard from him, but he's like the Canadian Marine of the NHL. And we got to know Tommy. And then what was a thrill for Gary and I, we got to meet Herb Brooks. And then now we're getting close. It's starting to turn, and Larry and these guys are sophomores. I remember we wanted to make the sectionals so bad. We had to win. We had to go 3-1-1 in our last 5. You had to come in the top 4, and we needed one team to beat another team to get, and we did it. And we won a sectional game. We were so fired up. The next year we were 12-7. We only had 12 seniors, and these players had just completely bought in. We had them lifting weights, and Coach Asselta would have one of his football coaches make sure they were there, and he'd let me know who was there. We'd go down and check with them, and the challenge was there, and it was fun. But unfortunately, we had budget issues, and they cut all their assistant coaches out, and it wasn't going to be fair. Like I told Gary, we can split it, but there wasn't any. Then the next season when we had the fantastic year, we had a proclamation and everything on how well we did, and still wasn't passed. And that time I got a call from Coach Vendera, and he'd call there were a couple times I almost went to Whitesboro, and the timing wasn't right. I asked Gary, where do you want to finish up coaching? And and we talked. It just didn't think it. We didn't want to. We couldn't drive to Utica, just one of us, and just coach there. It's just too hard, just too much time consuming. So we ended up going to Whitesboro.
And Coach Bud DiMaggio says, "Great coach, top notch man. Loved my 5 years of baseball with him. They don't come any better."
Buddy hit the ball for me every year. Buddy was, when he was in 8th grade, he was in 12th grade. He probably hit well over 400, and and he's just a great guy. It's just nice Facebook. Some of these guys remember you now that I'm learning how to get on Facebook.
No, it's great. And you got Coach Steve Campbell says, "Great coach, even greater man." Let's see what else we got. We got a bunch left down here. We got Leo Caposcia says, "The city of Rome could never give back half as much as Coach Fleet has given to Rome. Special man whose impact can't be measured by wins and losses."
I'll give you a good thing about
Yes.
Leo Kaposha. Frickin' frack. Leo Kaposha, probably he doesn't even realize that Leo Kaposha and Kirk Spencer won us games and might have won us sectional championships. We made it a function. We didn't get as much ice time sometimes as some of the public schools. So for us to maintain the edge, and at the same time we would have like skull sessions or who we were playing the next game. We would trade the VCR. We'd bring the VCR tapes in, and Kurt would call Frick and Frack, and they would not even asking. They would deliver. They would deliver, pizza and chicken wings every week. And some of the times we did it. It was just as much of a bonding, and we did a lot of things like Jimmy Kenny said, "Coaches are thieves." We were too, and and I stole right from one of the guys right under his nose, and I learned a lot just by watching and having Gary with me. We learned a lot from Coach Davis. So we tried football sessions like Coach Davis would do with a football team. We started using them with hockey from our big games, and it really it really worked, and we could get these kids really ready to play the games, and so it was a learning experience, and a lot of that was frickin'
And
frack.
Coach Nowicki says, I love hearing the old Rome hockey stories. It continues to be a pleasure to have you on the RFA coaching staff. You're a true role model and are appreciated more than you'll ever know. That's great, Coach.
I appreciate having Jason having out me, and I'll tell you what, Rome has two super hockey coaches. We're so fortunate. The kids in Rome having Jason Nowicki and Dave Petrelli. They just do a tremendous job with the kids, and and they get Jason as a young guy, and I think that's where I've really enjoyed being out there with Jason. And I think too, I'm on a downslide. I know that, and they watch out they're very careful with him. They make sure Eddie O'Brien goes on the road games with us, and they make sure Eddie and I are on the bus before we go. They make sure in practice. The only thing I worry about in high school is getting hit. My doctor told me, he said, you better be careful out there. That ice is hard, but the kids watch out for him and they watch. But I think having young coaches, the years that I had at coaching high school and coaching at Hamilton College, I can still be of a help, and along with working with the goalies. And I had the same thing. I really enjoyed working with Coach Cusperson, and I want to get back working with Coach Cusperson. RFA hockey has been. It really keeps me going. And when you live in Rome, New York, and you don't ski and you don't have a snowmobile, you got to have something. I'll tell you, come 2:30, I'm looking for something to do. But some great moments in hockey for me. I had 4 of my grandsons playing for RFA, and I think one of the toughest losses I ever had. I call Greg sometime. I call him the Marv Levy of Rome. We lost 4 sectional championships to West Genesee, all 1 goal, real close games. And one of them, the one that I really wanted the most, because I wasn't going to have it, I had 2 of my grandsons on that team, Nick Mecca and Cameron Mecca, and that would have been for our family. Would have been a great thing to win a sectional championship.
Coach, your grandson actually. Let me pull it up here. Nick says, always one of the coolest and most memorable things to play for my grandfather in high school. It's something I'll never forget. And that's awesome. You won't forget that.
No, they were great times. And Nick had really a fantastic senior year. And Nick was playing on our top line, and his brother Cameron was a freshman, and Cameron was playing on her second line, but Cameron was doing a lot of the penalty killing, and they both had real good years. That was just something that was really special. And then come later, I had my grandson Michael Haig, and I was just watching Michael progress and keep getting better. And Michael became one of the captains. Then it came we had the young Mecca, Danny Mecca, when they're playing on the same team with Michael. And to watch that team, Danny had been injured at the beginning of the year, and Danny came back, and I think Al Williams was with us that year, and we were wondering if we're going to make the sectionals, and we were really after them, and they just went on fire. I think we won like seven 7 of the next 8 and made the sectionals. But it was just really fun having those guys on there. And then Danny's senior year, Danny just tore it up, and he ended up he was named the top hockey player in Oneida County, and that's a thrill that nobody can ever take away.
And Coach
from
Smitty, David Smith says Wayne Cacciatore, Joe Peluso, Scott Petoniak, and Dan Googie and myself hung out at Franklin Field every day, enjoyed chatting with Fleeter and Anania, and we drove them nuts over ping pong balls.
They were the greatest guys. We had a lot of fun. Ask Smitty about the day Eddie or Tommy Thomas. We took a new baseball and we autographed it. I know Dan was a big Boston Red Sox fan, and we autographed it with some of the lesser players on the Red Sox. And what they used to do, if they broke the ping pong ball, you lost your quarter. So they'd bring their own ball and play forever. They'd be breaking balls. They'd throw it in the paddle. You can't holler. That's because it's our paddle. Well, anyways, they pushed the ping pong balls under the ceilings, up the tiles. So we put the ball up, and they won't bring it back. And Tommy and I said, yeah, I think they will. So if we look back, they're playing, they left. We look up, and the ball's gone. About a day later in the afternoon, they come in. If they come up with somebody comes up, if somebody finds something and turns it in, and then it's not claimed, do you guys keep it, or does it go back to the owner? If we does the finder get to keep it? Now we knew we had. Now we started laughing, and we knew we should.
But Coach, I want to wrap up with a few things because we're running close here. But I want to ask you about, you're in 2 Hall of Fames. You're in the New York State Hockey Hall of Fame, and you're also in the Rome Sports Hall of Fame. Let's start with the Rome one first. How special, and what's it mean to you to be part of the Rome Sports Hall of Fame?
I think that's fantastic to be recognized, by your hometown is, there's certainly nothing better. And I look at, it wasn't as much me. It was just was the good fortune to be on have some really great teams, some great coaches. I mean, Gary Labarge and I coached together for 16 years. And we really started coming together when Gary came over here as a player. And then when Gary came on and started coaching with me, and that honor belongs to them. It belongs to Frank Didio, who groomed all of us at RCH when we had those banner years, and we all learned so much from Frank.
And Coach, how about the New York State Hockey Hall of Fame?
Again, just to be recognized by your coaches, and again too, that one is as much those players. And the nice part, when you go up to Lake Placid, that plaque is up to Lake Placid, mine, but their plaque is up there with the team, and all the players' names are in the Hall of Fame at Lake Placid. That was just brought together by all.
And Coach, I know it had to be special to have the rink right here in Rome named after you. How special of a moment was that?
That's just a great honor, and to have it that day, they went over and they invited the coaches that I was with. Coach Grady came over from Hamilton College. Tom Shane, who was the Whitesboro football coach. Tom and I developed a great friendship at Hamilton, and Gary Heenan was over. And to have all those guys there, it was something special, and it was something that my wife and my players made possible. And it just to show how good this community was. When I was asked to be the coordinator for the renovation of Kennedy Arena, they told us we could raise maybe $175,000. And I had no idea what we could do. I never did that, but I had a great committee. And my first step is I went over to see Charlie Constantino, and it showed Charlie what we had. And he started moving things all around. He says, "You got to take this back." And he says, take this back, work on it, do these things, and come back next week. And I came back and we put it all together. And I was amazed and the old money that was in this town, and people that I would call personally, everyone that gave us over $1,000. And some of them were kids. I remember they had daughters, and they just loved us. They skated at Kennedy Arena. Some of them just believed in the community. And we ended up, we raised $750,000, and $500,000 was from the community. And so that's just a great thrill. Every time you go in there and you see your name in there, and it's good. My grandkids
Coach,
love it. And I tell the coaches when they come in, like Calabufo and the guys from West Jenny, hey, coffee's $1. I said, hey, go up there and tell them you know me. You get your coffee for $1.
Coach, last thing I got, basketball related. Who's your Final Four?
Okay.
Who'd you have?
Well, I've went with Syracuse so far. I've got Illinois, and they're gone. I've got Gonzaga, and I've got Baylor, and I can't remember who the other one. I took Syracuse for a couple rounds, but I think I left Syracuse home for the next rounds. Hey, can I get into one more? We haven't talked about the
Yes.
85 state championship that quick, and that was really another one was a thriller. That the team we'd lost JR from the team before. We knew we had to fill up a lot of goals, but we just talked about, hey, nobody's going to get 40 goals in here, but if everybody picks up 5 or 10 more, our scorers will get them. And they did that. The guy, that was a special team. We started out, we won the first tournament. We opened the season with Albany Academy at the Salmon River tournament, and we beat them in an open net goal. And we came home, we brought Salmon River down to our tournament. We ended up playing double overtime with Salmon River before we won that game. We get to our sectional final, and it was one of the greatest games we'd been in. And we're running against Watertown again, and we beat them in double overtime. I remember, I can still remember the goal, but I can't remember in the VCR because Captain Video was so excited when John Knutson scored his son. I think we missed part of the goal, but that was a thrill. We go to Albany, Glens Falls, and we're in the state championship against Albany Academy, who we opened the season with. We win the game. We go into overtime. I remember it was 2-2, and we go into overtime. And I remember we're bringing them back to the bench, and those guys were just so cool. There wasn't a nerve in there. It was just like you guys like to drive us nuts. And I think Glenn looks at me, and I look at him. I don't know who said it. One of them said it. We got them right where we want them. So I got the players over. I says, guys, got them right where we want them. 62 seconds later, it was Bilby to Yaxel in the state championship.
Never easy, is it, Coach? Always dramatic fashion.
No. Yeah. Hey, one more, and I'd be remiss if I didn't thank my wife for all that she did. I consider myself so fortunate. I married the most beautiful girl I ever went out with. She told me she wanted 6 daughters. I never thought she'd get 6. I thought she had 4. We might have 4, and we ended up a few years later. We had a little one, and that made 5. But she gave up her career at New York Telephone and just stayed home to raising the kids. I mean, she was a taxi. She was a mother. She was the father. There were so many athletic events. Myself. A lot of the work with the recreation department. There's a lot of evening work there. I worked a ton of hours coaching, and I know I missed out on some of the things with the kids, but we never missed a beat. We tried as much as Sundays were all family. We tried to go off to Saturday. It wasn't hockey. If we would cross country ski then and again Sunday, but I owe her everything to her, and I love everything she's did for us. And now we've got 14 grandkids of our own, and we're the taxi drivers, and we run them all around, and I can't be prouder of my family. I can't be prouder of what she did.
Coach, I know we're all proud of you, and it's an absolute honor to have you on here and get a chance to sit down and have you take us through so many stories. And like I say to everybody, we could probably go for hours upon hours, but again, you've done so much for this community, and I truly appreciate everything you've done and continue to do. So I really appreciate it.
Just one more. We got JR on there, and JR was just truly one of the most remarkable people that we ever had. He was really come over. we really weren't quite sure. I knew he was going to be good. I didn't know he was going to be that good when he came with us. Mark Johnson was one of my former players, and Mark tipped me off. He's coach. I got one over here. You got to talk to, and I'm not sure if he'll go out for RFA. And you got JR to come over, and JR, and that's to show the type of guy that Gary Labarge owned every scoring record in Rome Catholic history, and between working with JR eclipsed all the records in Rome Catholic history, and he owns most of the city records. And he had so many big goals, and he's just a special person. And the last one, the one thing that we had to get JR out of every once, if JR didn't score, sometimes he would get in a funk. So I don't know. We found to start hollering, just holler at him. Mark said, "Coach, holler at him. You're the one that can get some go." So it got to be every once if JR had a bad period and he wasn't scoring, just holler at JR. And the next thing you know, JR gets going and we get going. Then it got to the point, why you can't holler at JR because he's scoring and he's doing that. But one of them said to me one day, "Coach, I don't know what it is." He says, when you get mad and you start hollering at JR, the rest of us play better. So the last couple of years, and we're not doing a Herb Brooks, but I would yell at JR and kind of look at JR, and he knew I wasn't yelling so much at him, but the whole team would get going. And JR is, he's a special guy. He's been special to all of us.
All right, Coach. Well, listen, I appreciate it. And you know what? We'll have to do it again. We'll have to see if we can get you on the radio show on Saturday mornings. But on behalf of, myself with the Rome Sports Hall of Fame, Coach, thanks for helping make this happen for me.
Well, I appreciate it, and you do a great job, Rock, and I enjoy listening to all your shows. And I got to give one more. We turned Frank Didio into a hockey man. I got Frank that took over the Section 3 championship from me, chairmanship, if I would stay on. So Frank became a hockey man. Another one, Mayor Griffel, became a hockey guy. So Senator Griffel got his background, and he was riding on the bus trips for Rome Catholic games and really brought a lot to our team. And we had a lot of fun with him. He and Timmy Merchant did 2 of our highlight films that we can never forget. But I appreciate all the people that text in.
Thanks,
Keep up
Coach.
the good work.
Appreciate you.
Okay, thanks.
Wow, I feel bad. I could have probably talked with Coach for another hour, and just another example of I always say I think all these coaches are hidden gems and on the Mount Rushmore of coaches, and not only just Rome, but across the Mohawk Valley, and how about all of New York State, that the coaches that we've had on here on this show. So I really appreciate that, and all the feedback is phenomenal. I hope I got to as many comments as I possibly could, so I appreciate that. Next week, I talked to Coach Jerry Fiorini, will join me, and then we get into the month of April. And then again, starting in the month of May, I'll have the WKTV personalities on the show, and I'll also be adding more guests to this show too. So this has been great. I hope you enjoyed it tonight. As I say every Wednesday night on the Rock Pile, the Rock Pile is where dreams become reality. Enjoy the evening, everybody.